Greetings and salutations. This is Imperator Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
It's a different trusty sidekick
is,
today.
yes.
The other trusty sidekick is somewhere else. So, this is a unboxing video for what I believe used to be called Test of Honor and is now called Warlords of Unpronounceable Word.
Unpronounceable word.
Can you pronounce that word?
Erehwon.
Erehwon. I don't know how you pronounce it, and I can't bother to look up someone else who's done an unboxing on these because I don't watch other people's unboxings.
Well, maybe whoever's watching may know how you pronounce it, in which case...
Well, good luck writing it in the description.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Yeah, I never thought of that.
I try and avoid watching other people's unboxings because then I use their ideas and I don't want to do that, so I just stick to sort of working with it and then learning over time. Now this is a starter set from Warlord Games.
Yes.
This unboxing video would actually have been the unboxing video for the new 40k game.
Oh yes.
With the Necrons and the
yes.
Necrons and what would have been the Sidekicks Ultramarine Army because he was getting Rabute Gilman and everything. But considering Games Workshop's new policies and the behaviour, I've spent it on this instead.
We've gone elsewhere.
Yeah, they said they said you won't be missed, so we're not. No. So they've missed out on
there we go.
this and the money we've spent on the other stuff. So yeah, so I don't care anymore. Right, anyway, here we are with this unboxing. Now this box retails about £77, I think, but it's on offer at the moment.
We got it on offer, didn't we?
For 66. So if you go to Warlord's site, it's here for £66, and it's actually quite decent. So we'll just have a quick overview of what we get. First of all, you get this box. This, in a way, you get sort of 4 different boxes with this unboxing, but I'm just going to try and do them all as one if we can fit it all in time wise. Yeah. So this is the heroes box, and they're the heroes you get in it, which you get 9 heroes. So we'll have a look at them in a minute. You also get mounted samurai. I think you get 6 mounted samurai, and you get 1 unit of Ashigaru infantry. Are these Ashigaru or samurai? These are samurai. 1 unit of foot samurai, which is, I think, works out about 5 foot samurai, and then you get a unit of Ashigaru armed, who are kind of light infantry. They were originally like peasants, but later on became the regular army. So these ones are armed with either the long spear, or you get 2 sprues of Ashigaru armed with ranged weapons. So you get bows and muskets. I think roughly about 1/3 of the samurai era armies were musketry. So
I suppose you can equip them with what you
however you want, and also depending on the year you did it.
Yeah.
And then we have horses. So which will we look? Not only that.
Oh yeah.
You also get this fine building as well, which I haven't obviously unpacked yet. Which is a nice little. It gives you a nice little building to start with. So you've got a building to work round, and you have enough troops to make yourself 2 small warbands.
Not bad, is it really?
Yeah, or you can make 1 decent warband with the troops you've got.
Yeah.
Because you get samurais in the box as well. So
not too bad then, actually.
It's actually really good. So how will we do the? Which one do you want to go for first? Pick something and we'll work with it. We've got the samurai cavalry, the foot samurai, the 2 Ashigaru, and the box.
Well, why don't we start with the foot first?
Foot stuff,
and
right.
then we'll go cavalry, and then we'll do the heroes last.
Yeah. If the video's becoming too long, we'll do that one as a separate unboxing video, because I think there's quite a bit to go into for that. So, if I put this up, we can have a good look at what's inside. I haven't planned this. This is all sort of ad lib. Right. So we'll have a look at the foot Ashigaru first, shall we?
Yeah.
Right. So here are the Ashigaru were armed with close combat weapons, sort of basic combat weapons. So we have the right. If we go this way, you can see it better. Right. First of all, command flag, very important. There's a guy with a nice little backpack, which I think is a drum. I think.
You think?
I don't know. I haven't really looked into these yet. I'm just getting them out of the box for the first time, so I'm kind of this is a project we weren't at. When Test of Honor first came out, I thought, hey, let's get Test of Honor, but then we got all the 40k stuff, and so Test of Honor got thrown to the back. Then we went on to Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
So we've been doing Call of Cthulhu for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So we've been playing that constantly, almost every second night.
Yeah.
We're doing really well, although my character died the other day.
Yeah, he did, unfortunately.
So I've had to roll up a completely new character. It was a complete fundle. I fell out of a window. I heroically fell out of a window.
Yeah.
Someone could have saved me, but she was busy.
How busy doing
She didn't even think of saving my life. No. Anyway, that's enough Call of Cthulhu for now. Right, we have the feet. Now, when this box first came out, we sort of get in it and I looked into them, and then we ended up getting sidetracked. But I do remember from that the figures I saw, we were triples when it came out.
Yeah,
that was its
I
launch.
think so. Yeah.
Either triples or salute, but
one
wouldn't
of
have been. Yeah. And I saw the figures, some of the Basin figures up, and they looked great. They were absolutely brilliant, and I thought they were lead. And they're not, they're actually plastic. So normally plastic figures are all a bit samey, but these guys have so many different options on them that you can really kind of go to town with what you're doing. And you can position them. I think the one that they had a wall, and there were 3 Ashigaru climbing over it. And they had them all posed climbing over, and it didn't look like he'd done much modification to do it. So that's an idea.
Yeah,
future
you've got a variety of poses you can put them in.
So you've got one side of leg, other side of leg, and then you have body here, and you have a number of bodies so you can swap and change how you do it. And then you have the banner for the back, and then you have a collection of arms. And the great thing about the collection of arms is they're all different arms, and they all do different things, and so you can swap out whatever weapon you want. So, do you know, like the Arab stuff we've been doing, the Arab figures? I've been converting a lot of my Arabs to carrying muskets, because we're doing Arabs with muskets. They're not Arabs, actually, they're Rif.
Yeah.
The Rif would probably beat you up if you called them an Arab. but in the films they're always called Arabs, and they're not. The Rif, where is it? Bojest and Lauren and Hardy.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's not coming.
They wear blue uniforms and they're French, but they're not French.
I know.
French Foreign Legion,
That's it, yes. Foreign Legion.
So the difficulty with the Arabs, you can't pose the arms. One is a set arm, so you have to cut that off and replace it with a American Civil War arm. So then you have to put cloth on the bottom to make it look more, because the American Civil War carried sackcloth, and it's all complicated. These, each individual weapon is a separate weapon, and so you've got the hands there, and then you can put whatever weapon you want in the hands, and you can also swap and change. Obviously, I haven't built any of these yet, so I don't know how amenable they are. But from looking at them, I think you've got quite a variety of things you can do, different poses, sort of stabbing or marching upwards. So I'm looking forward to having fun with them. And I love converting.
Yeah,
so,
I'm looking forward to Mess on Plan.
Yeah. So we have the sword there, and the what's the tiny sword called? The katana and the.
I
can't remember its name. You've got 2 swords. You've got
it's
one.
Sword.
Yeah, in films they have 2 swords, and one sword is the sort of samurai sword that they fight with, and then they commit suicide with the small sword. The small sword isn't actually that ceremonial. It's a short sword. It's for using in enclosed spaces. You can't swing a samurai sword on a castle wall, so you use your short sword for that. and that's what that's used for. Again, the samurai period goes from what 14 odd up to about 1600, doesn't it? Or 13 odd, 1600. So you've got a large period of time there where the type of weapons did change over time, so you can do what you want with this box. And anyway, no one really remembers and no one knows. Just doing what you want. You ever seen Last Samurai?
I have.
Yeah, forget it. Just forget it. Right. Next one. Actually, I will go into that. Last Samurai, the beginning of the film when the so that's Chinese. Hang on. The beginning of the film where the Japanese army is fighting the samurai, and they get beat. They're Ashigaru. They're still Ashigaru at that point.
Oh.
They didn't become Ariska, is it called? Riflemen until after that, during the May Rebellion. May Rebellion, they changed. But the troops at the very beginning are Ashigaru. So, but that's when they ended. It's complicated. This is the weapon sprue, the ballistic weapon sprue. So you've got some awesome hands holding holding arrows. I noticed this with the Greeks. You only got one of those arms on the sprue.
Yeah.
So most of your troops were reloading, and only one was actually firing. This, you can either have more firing, you can have more reloading. You've got enough spare stuff to do things with. Because remember, you've got the spare arms from the other box as well, which you can have one plucking an arrow out of the quiver or whatever. Then you have bows there. That's all the bows you have available, which are all in different poses, sort of pre-shot and after-shot. Then you have the samurai-style sword and the other sword, which I can't remember the name of it. And then you have the muskets there. What do we know about muskets?
The guns.
No, I know you know about this. All right, I'll do it.
Go on.
Muskets. Same with cannon. Japan, for about 100 years, did buy muskets from China. In the early samurai period, they didn't use them because they weren't very good. They tended to blow up, especially the cannon were useless. Until the Dutch, I think a couple of Dutch guys turned, or was it an Englishman and a Dutchman? And then two Dutchmen arrived later. And they arrived and they had muskets, which may or may not have been Turkish. I only found that out today. That the muskets that they originally gave to the Japanese were actually Turkish muskets. But I don't know. I don't, that's from one source, and I've never read anything about it before, so I don't know. Anyway, they gave the modern, what we would call modern muskets, not modern, think English Civil War era muskets. So they were introduced to the Chinese. These two guys got shipwrecked in Japan, and they said, look, we've got these muskets, and the Japanese said, these are way better than that junk the Chinese are trying to sell us. And they reverse engineered them, and by the time the Dutch arrived, there were over 100,000 muskets, they believe, in Japan at that time.
Okay.
Already, by the time the Dutch actually started selling them. Same with cannon. They reverse engineered European cannon and used them themselves. So there were a lot of muskets in Japan.
Right.
Another interesting point. I love interesting points. What do you know about the civilian muskets?
Not a lot.
Yes, you do. Because we talked about this.
We probably have, but remember, I don't always remember things.
But you know... Oh, God. Right, fine. I'll do it.
Right.
There were two types of musket primarily used in Japan. There were also revolving muskets, which were a musket with a breech that revolved, and you loaded, I think, 5 or 6 bullets ready, and then you clicked the revolver and fired the musket, and then you clicked it again, and then fired it again, and then you clicked it again and fired it again. So they actually invented revolvers.
Oh.
The guys who wear blue uniforms in Europe, one of the German states. They wear bright blue uniforms like electric blue.
What? Bavarian?
Bavarian, yeah. The Bavarians also had revolving muskets.
Did they?
Yes. And the Italians had a musket with 2 barrels, one on top of the other. And you'd fire the first barrel, then you'd twist the whole thing round and fire the second one. So they had double shot rifles, muskets. Yeah, anyway.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. So it wasn't just the Japanese who invented revolvers. I think the Bavarians got there first. The Italians had a version, and then eventually I think a proper revolver was first invented by an American.
Oh.
So you have these muskets, and there were 2 types in Japan. In Britain, the British government didn't care who had a musket or had a firearm. In fact, in Britain, everyone was regarded to have been armed. Someone wrote, I mentioned this before, someone wrote, it's a strange Englishman who goes to the pub without a mace. Without a weapon that you can harm someone with. So a lot of English people had bow. In fact, you had to practice with a bow every Sunday, I believe. There was a law that said you had to practice every Sunday. A lot of English people had crossbows. At the time of the English Civil War, a lot of people turned up to muster with crossbows, their family crossbow. And a lot owned their own muskets. And there was no laws against owning muskets. Typically because Britain's soldiery didn't have a professional army until John Churchill. He was the first official British Army Commander-in-Chief where you had a standing army. Until then, you required English people to just go to their local sort of muster point and become a regiment. So most English people could use a gun. It's funny when you look at Britain today, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Where it's illegal to own a spoon in public. You got a license for that spoon. Yeah. Anyway, modern politics aside, so English people all had muskets, or either had a musket or crossbow. We were surrounded by weapons all the time, the English, which is probably why no one ever successfully invaded us. So when you look at Europe, the French banned all weapons for peasants. Peasants could not own weapons. In fact, peasants in France couldn't actually serve in the French army. The French lords hired mercenaries to fight for them. So they hired people from Italy and from Germany to fight their wars. So the French peasantry were not allowed firearms at all. You weren't allowed, even for hunting. Whereas in Germany, they tried to make firearms illegal. Who was the chap who nailed the letters to the wall? Oh, Martin Luther. Martin Luther said that firearms were weapons of Satan, and he demanded all firearms be rounded up and burnt as demonic. Strange people, the Germans. In Japan, they had a completely different way of looking at it. Right, samurai had iron armor. Some had steel armor later years, but they had armor made out of pressed iron. Right.
Lightweight.
Samurai armor weighs about the same as European armor. In fact, probably a little bit lighter than European armor.
Is that heavy?
No, not really. I've worn armor. It's not. You don't feel it because you wear it all over your body at the same time. It's not like carrying a backpack.
Yeah, surely your mobility is slightly.
No, particularly samurai armor. You could climb rocks. In fact, they do. They dress up in samurai armor and go rock climbing.
Okay.
They're very, very agile. You wore your samurai armor all the time. You never took it off. So when you were on campaign, you'd wear it for 6 months.
Ew.
Yeah, you'd smell. But everyone smelled back then. Everyone smelled.
Ew.
But so samurai armor was. He was in pieces. He was in different sections all over the body. Yeah. You will see it when we do the samurai bit. So you have pieces of armor all over, and in between the armor you had cords which linked the armor together, and then you had chainmail wherever there was a gap.
Okay.
And tests by reenactors and people in Japan, people who do this stuff, have proved that a samurai armor can take a samurai sword anywhere, and it's pretty much fine.
Okay.
Now European armour is a bit different. We used armour in plates, and it was one plate went over another. like Roman segmentata.
Oh, yeah.
So one plate went over another, and you had chainmail underneath.
That's why I thought mobility would be a bit more restricted in sort of
again,
like
European armour, you could move. You have a large amount of freedom of movement.
it doesn't look coming though, wouldn't it?
Well, our armour was jointed. Whereas the samurai used sort of cords to hold their armour together, ours was jointed. So it's very advanced, very clever stuff, armour. It doesn't look it, but it actually is. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Where was it? Mobility. So mobility was absolutely fine. And what they found is the only way samurai would really fight would be to try and either break the opponent's arm, therefore making him defenseless, or try and cut the bit where the gaps in the armour are, so you can cut the cords. And if you can cut it enough, it probably takes 3 or 4 hits. That piece of armour might fall off. At which point you can get your sword in, and that's what your shorter sword's for.
You can do
then,
damage. Yeah.
So samurai fights would probably have taken a while of samurai just beating the living hell out of each other with samurai swords. So that would have looked awesome. Although European swords get dinted if you hit armour with it, and often shatter. There's lots of things of you would hit someone with a sword and the sword would break. That's why the Arabs had curved swords, because their swords broke when they fought against Europeans. So they had to have the curved sword because they didn't have the ability to make the proper steel. So they were for slashing, not for stab. You can stab with it, but you can't sort of hack with it. Whereas our swords are more like axes, and the way you use it is just a solid lump of iron that you just whack someone with, and it will break their bones even if they're wearing armour. Samurai swords aren't that heavy. They don't do that sort of damage. But you will break limbs if you hit it precisely. So I can't remember what the point is I was trying to make.
About mobility of movement.
Mobility of movement, yes. So when you've got large mobility of movement, you can actually do a lot more on the battlefield. You can run, you can charge, you can swing your sword anywhere you want. Your armour's not going to impede how you use it.
Okay.
Back to the guns anyway, so that's what we was talking about when we got sidetracked. Sorry, right. With the guns, the Japanese government came up with this really clever idea. Samurai wore very strong armour. Ashigaru, not so much. Right? Now, if you have a peasant revolt, or an army that has peasants in it, wouldn't it be embarrassing if this untrained peasant just shot your greatest samurai warrior?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be bad. And the samurai wouldn't like it.
No.
And the peasant would probably be quite happy. But so the Japanese government came up with this great idea, or not the government, the shoguns came up with this great idea, and that's that civilians could own guns just like soldiers own guns, but civilian guns had a very, very light charge. So they had the power like an air rifle. So civilian guns, you could fire at a samurai, but the shot would bounce off. It didn't have enough force to actually...
So it couldn't penetrate.
Yeah, and the guns were made deliberately so they couldn't take a higher charge.
Right.
So you would fire at a samurai and it would do nothing. Because the armour was proof against that sort of bullet. Now, for the army, you did have proper weapons for the army that did have enough charge to penetrate samurai armour. Then again, it's still not that easy. You have to be quite close, even with not a modern musket, a European style musket. It's still not that easy. You have to be within a certain distance. People wore the cuirass in Europe until they were still wearing the cuirass in the Franco-Prussian War. Because it still worked. Yes, the breastplate. It still worked.
Yeah.
It was still proof against, not close range, but at distance. It was decent. So these muskets are not the civilian type. They're the type for firing with, for shooting at soldiers with. They also had another type of musket which is not on this sprue, and that was technically like an arquebus. It was a hand cannon.
Oh, right.
And it was used for blowing the door off its hinges. So if there was a fortress, you would run up to the fortress and fire your hand cannon into the door, and it would blow the lock, or blow the hinge, or blow the wooden the brace behind the door, and then you could get in. And that's what they were used for. They were the same size as one of these, but they were a lot thicker, and they were about 30mm bore, so they were pretty hefty shell it was firing. Oh, it's a tiny cannonball. a 30 centimetre cannonball. Not huge, but it'll go through a horse.
Yeah.
And we've seen these fired. There are people who do use live ammunition and fire with them, unlike the sealed knot, who never do, in Japan. And there's not that much kick compared to one of these, believe it or not. There's not much difference in firing it. It's a lot louder, and it tends to make a lot of smoke and make a loud bang, but it's actually a pretty decent, well thought out device, this sort of hand cannon that they used. They did have pistols, but pistols were hardly ever used in combat.
No.
They were inaccurate and just annoyingly, they were too big and they weren't very useful. They were usually used as gifts. So you'd have a pistol made and it would be a gift. You weren't supposed to fire the thing. And I very much doubt any samurai ever fired a pistol in combat, or any Japanese soldier. It's a silly weapon as far as the Japanese are concerned. And also Japanese musketry, Japanese fired in ranks before we worked it out.
Okay.
So they actually they formed firing lines and they fired in ranks at the time where we were just popping shots off. I don't think we actually figured out rank fire until the Spanish Succession, which was quite late. The Japanese had figured this stuff out about 200 years earlier. So they'd worked out how to mass shots. And they also only used them at close range. So they were more likely to hit and do damage. So that's that. The bows, well, samurai bows are famous. And that's about that sheet, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Right, so move on to the samurai. Okay, we had 20 minutes already with this video. We don't want it to go too long, do we?
No, not really.
So do you want to call it quits now?
Yeah.
And then do that? Right.
Right.
So thank you very much for watching. I don't want you sat here watching a 45-minute video because you'll get bored.
Yeah.
So we will carry on with the other figures in the next videos.
Yeah.
Click like, subscribe, and look out for the next video. This has been Imperator Vespasian.
And his trusty sidekick.
Thank you for watching and see you soon.
Bye.